Slide pass, Hayward.
Pocket pass to Favors, powers to the rim, finishes! Derek Favors, you are fabulous!
Rudy, one giant step! Oh, that's got to be a salute! Favors flies high for two. Finds some space, hustles up, counted. Big bucket, muscle play. Yes! Rodney Hood!
Oh, the Jazz season coming to an early end on Wednesday. They cleaned out their lockers on Thursday. Now we're going to dissect, analyze, and fill in the blanks from what was said at the locker cleanout on Thursday. Some pretty revealing thoughts.
Yeah, Andy Larsen, Jazz beat writer for KSL.com, also managing editor of Salt City Hoops, making his SportsBeat debut. Andy, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, Thursday, you were there at locker cleanout. We heard some pretty interesting things. Let's start with Dennis Lindsay, Jazz GM, and Quinn Snyder. I asked them, what was the most fair criticism of his team, and how would they take care of that problem? Lindsay said ball security. Snyder agreed, and then added something interesting.
Some of that, in my mind, comes from even leadership on the court. That would be the other thing that I would point to, that and it's not a criticism of our current group as much as it is the recognition that there's a possibility for growth in that regard.
He's saying the team needs some leadership. That's criticism to his current group, by the way.
Yeah, no, I think it absolutely is. And you look at the youth of this group, and of course Quinn Snyder likes to remind us of that a lot. But there's no Chris Paul out there. There's no floor general out there for either at the point guard position or even not at the point guard position. No one's really taking ownership of a possession's success or failure, right? So I think we see that at the end of close games sometimes when the team's offense or defense struggles down in the clutch.
A few minutes later, when Derek Favors came to the podium, he was asked about the leadership, and he said, yeah, Gordon's a great leader. I'm a leader. So they want to be, but are they there yet, especially in late games? I think, what, about 51 games the last 2 years, the Jazz have had a 5-point lead in the final couple of minutes and lost? That's what they're talking about as far as they need leadership.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And just this season, 14 and 28 in games where it's within 5 points with 5 minutes or less left to go. So clearly the Jazz have a problem there. That's the third worst record in the league, by the way. So that's a problem. And yeah, I think that is something that they want to do, but it's not natural for Derek Favors and Gordon Hayward to really kind of step in and be that leader on the floor when the times get tough.
And that leads us to the thing we're going to talk about.
Yeah, maybe Dennis was trying to bring in a different guy, a different leader. He's had plenty of criticism. He was even saying, hey, you can criticize what I've done. And he was even criticizing himself and the way he handled some things, especially a couple things we didn't know that were going to happen.
We erred towards chemistry, continuity, continued development, but the opportunity cost of that is was there a veteran that could have helped us stabilize? But there were two particular deals that were actually proposed to us, and we said yes to. For whatever reason, we weren't able to consummate, and I've got to go through all those postmortems and see if there was something else that we could have done.
So, Andy, we're all going to be guessing throughout the offseason what were those two deals that the Jazz almost pulled off. But the fact is they were trying to do something and didn't. They get a lot of criticism for not being very active. At least we think they're not. So what was your reaction to what Dennis said there?
Yeah, I mean, very interesting, right? I mean, from my point of view, that it was offered, a deal was offered to them. They said yes, and the team wasn't able to consummate it. That tells me that it was probably a team with an interesting or a probably weak front office, like a team like the Sacramento Kings, the New York Knicks, where maybe not all on the same page as far as making decisions goes, right? So still, you're right. You know, if you kind of imagine what could have been, and given that this team was so close to making the playoffs, you know, just a couple of games away, had a great point differential, like we said, couldn't get it done in the close games, maybe having a good veteran player who, with a lot of, as Dennis said, an expensive player, one that would be worth multiple draft picks, it pretty clearly would have made the difference.
If you want to just guess, there was a lot of talk about Jeff Teague from the Hawks coming. So I'm guessing that they probably you'd think maybe Jeff taking this out, we'll give you Shelvin Mack.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just what I'm thinking through my crazy mind.
No, it could have been that. From what I heard, Atlanta was always asking more than the Jazz were willing to offer on that. I mean, they were asking for Rodney Hood from the beginning, and I think a lot of Jazz fans wouldn't have been willing to make that trade.
We touched on a little bit one of the biggest problems for the Jazz, turnovers. Here's Dennis Lindsay on what may have contributed to all those turnovers.
A shot is better than no shot. So we have Rudy up top handling the ball a lot, and at times his turnover percentage is high. So there's that fine line between experimentation, so allows for growth, but yet reducing maybe a trouble area with ball security.
Wow. Dennis kind of called a couple of people out there, because if Rudy's the cause of turnovers, that's coaching, right? They got to stop doing that, correct?
Yeah, but it's funny because the stats show that when Rudy Gobert is engaged offensively, is getting the ball in his hands a lot in the course of a possession, he's a lot better defensively. And in fact, he'll admit it. He says that he wants to be involved offensively so he can stay engaged on defense. And that's interesting for a young player to actually come out and say that. And you wonder if he could, maybe define his role more tightly on the offensive end, not get into situations where he doesn't excel, and still be good on the defensive end, then the Jazz may be better off.
How much of a problem, though, with the turnover situation was the point guard situation?
A lot, right? And I think that is kind of the #1 call out there. I mean, obviously, not great quality at the point guard position for the Jazz this year. And even Shelvin Mack, who I think was the best Jazz point guard by the end of the season, is still a high turnover kind of player. And so it was a problem throughout the course of the year. Top 5 team in terms of turnovers this season, and again, it cost them.
Yeah. Okay. It's an Olympic year. Dante Exum, been injured the entire year. Got a chance to play for his national team. Joe Ingles, Rudy Gobert, Howell Neto, and maybe even Gordon Hayward for Team USA. So at the risk of injury, is this a good thing for the Jazz players to go play for their national teams?
No question there's a risk.
If I'm not ready, I'm not ready. But, if I think I'm ready and, it's a possibility, then I'll do it.
It's going to be a great experience. I think we have opportunity to get a medal for Brazil.
I think I'm going to go, if my team qualifies.
It's a risk. Quickly, should these Jazz players go and play for their national team?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of cases it can only help. With Howell Neto, rookie in the league, I think having him in tough situations and competitive games over the summer is going to be a good thing. For a guy like Dante Exum, though, it could go either way. Obviously, if he gets injured again, or and especially with how Australia uses him kind of as a 2-guard off the ball, not making a lot of plays necessarily, then I don't know how much that would help Dante Exum.
All right, we got about 20 or 30 seconds here. Are we in agreement that the Jazz are on the right track? The coaching staff is solid. They've got these guys buying into the system. They just don't have the player?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they certainly don't have a superstar top 10, top 15 level guy.
They got $28 million.
They do have $28 million to spend.
They get a superstar.
Yeah, Kevin Durant's not coming to Salt Lake City.
They'd have to do it via trade, right? They could absorb a big deal. Maybe there's a guy like Jimmy Butler out there that Chicago wants to move. And I guarantee you the Jazz either have or are going to make that call this summer. All right. Can't wait to find out.
Well, we'll see what happens. It's going to be an exciting summer and see how it translates into wins and a playoff spot next year. Andy Larsen, KSL.com.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, buddy.